Hey guys, Mike here from ArnoldTutoring.com with a good calculus limit question. Let's take a look at it. The limit as x approaches 3 from the left. That's always important to look at, that it's coming from the left. Of the square root of 9 minus x squared over x minus 3. Often we see questions like this where the x is trapped under a square root and we're taking it to infinity. But here, since we're taking it to 3, we want to play it a little bit differently. Having 1 over x terms in the limit won't help us because we're not taking x to infinity, and that term won't go to 0. So instead, let's see if we can factor it all, which we can. So you can factor what's under the square root, and we should be able to see that this is a difference of squares. So 3 minus x, 3 plus x. Why do we think that's helpful? Well, because we can see an x minus 3, that's kind of the same on the bottom. It's not the same as either of those, though, unless we factor out a negative. So I'm going to do that just because I think there might be some canceling or some reducing that I can do with that. I'm also going to separate out these two into 2 square roots at the top. So that's a simple theorem that we know about square roots. You can multiply them together under 1 square root, or you can have them 2 separate square roots multiplied together. And I'm going to factor out a negative from the bottom. So this will become negative x plus 3. So I'm going to write it as 3 minus x so that it matches that square root up above. Now, the square root of 3 minus x over 3 minus x. So this piece right here. Whenever you have the square root of something divided by that full thing without the square root, it's just 1 over the square root of that thing. So I'll say that again. If we have root 2 over 2, this can be reduced to 1 over root 2. Right? It should be fairly straightforward. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to say this is the limit as x goes to 3 from the left of 1 over negative square root of 3 minus x, and I'm still multiplying by this square root of 3 plus x that I had. Okay, so again, that's just reducing that, and I still have my negative sign there. Now let's take a look at what happens when we plug in the 3. Again, it's 3 from the left, so it's really more like 2.999 because it's slightly less than 3. When we plug that in here, this square root is going to 0, but it's still positive under the square root, so we can actually solve it. But that's going to 0 with a bit of a negative in front of it, so we can even move this negative up top. And when we plug it in here, this is going to the square root of 6, so we're kind of getting like the negative square root of 6 over something very close to 0, but still positive. When the bottom is going to 0, the whole thing's going to infinity, but we've got that negative sign in front, so it's negative infinity. Takes a little bit of creativity, this one. I would say 2 main algebra steps: breaking up the 1 square root into 2, and then recognizing enough to factor out that negative so that you can do the property of a square root over the term without the square root equals 1 over that square root. Once you're there, you can plug in the values, see that one of them is going to 0, a constant up top, and anything divided by 0 will be infinity. So hopefully you found that helpful. You can always send more questions to info@arnoldtutoring.com. Thanks.